Hello, my name is Dennis, and I'm going to show you today in this video how to run the rough end water lines for a washing machine hookup. And I'm using an OD box, and I'm going to be using cpvc piping. So these OD boxes, they come with an optional hole on both sides, and you can hook your drain up to one side or the other. So we've got our drain hooked up on the left, and so then you've got to put your extra valve in. And all there is to it is you just line the tabs up and then just take it around. Yeah, I've got it backwards. Let's go this way. Take it around until it pops. And now it's lined up, ready to go. Most of the time your cold water is on the right and the hot is on the left. If you need it the opposite, you can take the valve handles off and just switch them. All there is a screw in the top. You just take the screw off and change them. And these are already set up for cpvc. This fitting will accept a cpvc pipe. So you can either use threaded and change it to cpvc, or you can just go ahead and run the cpvc up into it. So that's what we're going to do. Something you got to think about is where the water lines are going to go down. We're not going to be able to go straight down because this drain is in the way. The trap comes down and is in the way, so we can't get our water lines past. So what we're going to have to do is bring the water lines and kind of loop them around and bring them across and then back down. So one of the first things we're going to start with is drilling the holes. And you can put the holes right in the middle, and then you don't have to worry quite as much about when you're putting your drywall on hitting the pipes. If you drilled in the center, it's still not a bad idea to put a plate on there. I don't have any in here, but you can buy metal plates that you can put over the water line so you don't run a screw into it. But you'll drill it doesn't really matter where we put them here. I'm going to put them in the center. I'm going to be better in the center. But when you go down, and we're going to go through the floor or the plate down here, you're going to want to have to know what is underneath. So this is on a basement, and I know that there's a vent for the current dryer vent that we're using right now. Runs right through here, so it's going to be kind of hard to run it through there. And then also over on this area, right about in here, there's the ductwork for the heating and air. So it's kind of in the way. So I've got kind of a limited space as to where I can put these lines, but you'll want to go underneath your own house and look. You just want to make sure you're not going to drill into another water line down there or electric line or something like that. So let me go ahead and get these holes drilled, and then we'll start running the water line. Alright, I'm going to show you first how to glue the water line, how to clean it and glue it. So we're going to cut a piece to go in here. It doesn't have to be very long. We're just going to come over and go up. So I'm just going to make it about 3 inches long. This is a pretty handy little tool to have, especially if you do very much of this. It cuts it real nice and straight. If you don't have one of these, you can use a hacksaw. Works good too. So we're just going to cut off about 3 inches. And something I like to do is I like to run over it real quick with a piece of sandpaper. Just kind of get the burrs off the edge, especially if you use a hacksaw or some kind of saw to cut it. So first you're going to clean this. You just run the cleaner around it in a circle. Then you're going to clean your fitting, and I go ahead and clean both sides of the fitting. That way I don't have to know which side I cleaned. Then you're going to take your glue. You probably need to wipe some of it off. And you're going to go around the circle again. You're going to want to put plenty on the male side, and on the female you just kind of run it in, get a thin coat, and then you just take it and you're going to turn it about a quarter of a turn, and you're going to hold it for 15 to 30 seconds or so. That's about all there is to it. So now we're ready to put it in our line up there. So again, we're going to clean it off. We're going to clean where the fitting is. The glue on. And you're going to start out straight, and then you're going to turn it. And I just eyeball it to go up. That's good enough. So that's about it as far as gluing it. I'll be back with you in just a minute. We'll get the rest of it done. Alright, so now we're ready to go ahead and run the water line around, and I'm just going to leave the video running, and I'll kind of tell you what I'm doing as I'm going. So we're going to measure. We're just going to measure out, and you can go into this. Your pipe is going to go into it 1/2 inch. So you can just kind of eyeball it. We need to probably go over, and we'll get a 2-inch piece of pipe. So we're going to measure our pipe. You can kind of eyeball it to, it's not absolutely critical that it's straight. It should be pretty straight. Alright, now we're going to measure up to our first hole. And what you can do is you can cut you a piece of pipe, and we're going to cut it about 16 inches long. And you can just kind of temporarily put your fitting on there and kind of hold it to where it's straight and get you a measurement. And we're going to be about, I'm going to say 13 and a half inches, maybe a little less. And then you're going to add 1/2 inch for each fitting. So that's 1 inch. So we're going to add 1 inch to 13 3/8, so it's going to be 14 3/8. We'll cut that piece. Hold it together. Okay. Now I'm ready to put this next piece on. Alright, I've got my 16-inch piece that I had cut earlier that I was using over here to help me measure. I've gone ahead and put a 90 on it, and you can do this one of two ways. What you're going to want to do is measure over to the center of the hole that you've got drilled going through your bottom plate, and measure that real quick, and it's about 3 inches. So you can either measure 3 inches here, and then plus 1.5 inches for your stud is going to be 4.5. So then measure from that stud over to your fitting, and we got 9 3/4 of an inch. 9 3/4 plus 3.5 would be 13 1/4. So you can cut this off at 13 1/4 from the center. That's what you'd want to cut it from, because that's what we went to, the center of the hole down there. or you can stick your line through there if you're not comfortable doing that, and just lay it on top of it and measure about 3 inches. You can set it on top and measure to where you're 3 inches center, and make you a little mark. You're going to remember you're going to need to be add half an inch. So we're just about perfect on that. So we need to cut the half an inch. So, because you got your fitting, because it's got to go inside there. So we're already set on that. So let me get cleaned up and put the glue on it. Something I wanted to mention was they make two different kinds of cpvc pipe. They make, this is just the standard, and then they make some, you'll see it, it's got a yellow line going down it. I think it's called gold something. But when I was at Lowe's and bought this stuff, they were out of it. So I bought the other kind. And the difference between the two is the one with the gold, you don't necessarily have to clean it. If you use they make a glue that goes with it, that all you gotta do is you glue it, that goes with the yellow. But with this kind, you have to clean it and glue it. I always, even when I use the gold, I still clean it and glue it. So I just think, I don't know, just seems like it'd be better job. So let me get this cleaned up and we'll put that together. And I'm going to go ahead and put it through the hole before I put my glue on it. I'll clean that again. Glue. Put it together. Turn it. Hold it for a few seconds. Something I want to mention, when you drill your holes through here, I usually drill them 3/4 for half inch. I usually drill 3/4 or 7/8 of an inch. You don't want it real tight in there, otherwise, especially with the hot water, it will squeak. As it expands and contracts, it'll squeak in the wall. So you don't want it to be real tight. You want it to be in there loose. So now we're ready to go down through our hole. And something I like to do is I like to come up 3/4 in through the wall. I like to get 3/4 as close as, well, not exactly close as I can, because I would have made it all 3/4, but I like to get it fairly close because that keeps your pressure up and your volume, so the washer will fill up faster, that kind of thing. So I've got to get my 3/4 up coming from the bottom, and then we'll go from there. So let me get that up and then we'll finish it. Alright, I've got a block of wood down there underneath holding this up. So what we're going to do is we've got my 3/4 inch pipe going in, and we're going to put our reducer on it. Okay, so now we're going to get a measurement from our fitting at the top and to the bottom. And we got about 37 or 38 and a half inches. Now remember, add your half an inch for each end, so add an inch. It's 39 and a half inches. We'll cut our pipe. Okay, we'll go ahead and put our glue on both ends. And there's enough play in this stuff that you can get it apart pretty easy. And you're gonna just squeeze it together. Hold it for a few seconds. Okay, so that's all there is to running the water lines. I'm gonna run the hot water line, but I don't think you need to necessarily see that. You just run it the same way. And then when we get down in the basement, I'll show you how I'm gonna tie it in with the other water line. But that's all there is to it. All right, we've got our water lines completed up here now. We've got them all run in. Now we'll need to go down to the basement to finish it out down there. Something I want to point out, something that's real nice about using cpvc is if you make a little mistake, it's easy to fix. When I put this line in, when I put this one in, I had it cocked towards the wall just a tad bit too much, so it put this kind of in a bind like that. So all I'd had to do was cut it there, put a coupling in, and straighten it up. So that's one of the nice things about this stuff. It's pretty forgiving. I guess that's about it for up here. So I'll see you in the basement. One other thing, because of that, it's not a bad idea to dry fit this stuff together. It's a little harder to get apart than the PVC, but the cpvc, you can still dry fit it together and make sure it's going to work, and you can make marks on your pipe and on your fitting so that they line up perfect. Just want to kind of throw that in, so I'll see you in the basement. Alright, we're down in the basement now, and we're ready to run our water lines over to our main water lines. We've got our pipes coming down, and we've got the cold on the right and the hot on the left. And what we need to do, where they're in line with each other, you can't run both of them together, so because we're going that direction. So we've got to move one over. So what we're going to do, and what I did is I went ahead and made this so that it's going to move the hot over towards the back of the house. So what I did was I just 90'd down and over and then back down, and then we'll run over to the other water line. So what you need to do is you need to put this together and then kind of just get an idea of where you need to cut your pipe at. And you're going to mark that, and then we're going to stick our cutters up there and go ahead and cut it. Not a lot of room in here. Get down one. So all right, I did manage to get that cut. It just took some finagling to get my cutters to cut it. So now we're going to sand it down a little bit, get the burrs off, and we're ready to glue this piece on there. So I'm going to go ahead and get that glued up there. Alright, we're good there. So now we just need to glue this one on, and we're just going to run the pipe across like that. And so we'll go ahead and get that glued on, and then we'll go from there, and I'll show you what we're going to do down at the other end. Okay, we're ready to glue these two pipes together. I've got this top one sitting on top of this drain line for now, just kind of give me some support. And on the back one, the hot line, I went ahead and put a clamp in down there, down further, and I've got it run through it just to kind of help support it while I get it glued up. Okay, what we're going to do now, here's our two water lines, and we're going to use these fittings. Let me show you something about these fittings. There's a couple of different kinds you can buy. These are new. I've never used one of these before. They say they work pretty darn good, and these are what I'm used to using. Some people call them snake bites. There's different brands. This one here happens to be made by Tektite. It's called a Tektite. And this one here is a speed fit. And the pipe just slides onto it. And then to release it, you've got to pull this on this black, or on this one. You've got a special tool that you put on there, and it will pull this back, and it'll release it from the pipe. You just slide it on there, and it seals itself. You don't have to do gluing or anything. And on this one, It's got this like a nut on it to tighten and loosen it, and you just loosen it, and then you pull this here back. Can you see that? And you just pull that back and it'll release it. And they tell me that you can either tighten them up and you can't pull them out, or you can keep it loose and it won't come out unless you depress this. But if you tighten it, you can't depress that. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. And you got to look on the instructions. These have got a certain depth that you have to at least allow. And on these plastic ones here, it was 1 5/8 of an inch, or 1 5/8. So you got to allow that, at least that much. And on this one, for a 3/4, it was 1 1/8. So you've got to allow at least that much from your 90 that you're going to go up. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to cut these water lines and we're going to put these in there. And I'll show you how to do that when I get around to it. But until then, we're going to 90 our pipe just straight up into it. You know, basically like that, back here. So what we're going to do next is cut our pipe off so that they fit, and then put our 90 on and we'll be ready. What you can do, I'm just going to cut a piece 3 inches long to put in here, and that'll get us up into the new coupling. So let me get that set up and get those pieces cut, and we'll come down to this. All right, this step is pretty simple, but I'm going to go ahead and show you. What I'm going to do is, this is my hot and this is my hot. So we're going to just line up my pipe that I put together there with the hot water line. And we'll make a mark as to where we need to, that's not really where we need to cut it. We need to come back 3/4 of an inch from there. Now we're going to measure back 3/4 of an inch. And that's where we're going to cut our pipe off. So let me cut that off real quick. We'll glue that up. So then when we put our fitting in there, this will just push right up onto it, and it'll be done. I was going to show you, kind of show you how these work. They just push in until they're seated, and you can't pull them out. They just grip, and they're sealed, and then you can tighten this up. You can't get it out, it won't move, so you got to loosen it. Then you just squeeze that and it comes out. And that's basically how these work, but you have to have a little tool. I mean, you can try and squeeze down this black rim, but you really have to have a tool that wraps around it. I've got one for a 1/2 inch, but I don't have one for a 3/4 inch. So they work pretty good. They really work good. All right, we're finally to where we're going to tie the water line into the existing water line. A couple of things I need to tell you about. This little tool here, it's a cutter. It's very handy to have to get into these tight spaces. A normal cutter you couldn't do it. So this is for cutting copper pipe. So, and then another thing, yesterday or in the earlier video, 2 of these. I had this metal type or this brass type, and then I also had a plastic one. And something you have to keep in mind is you've got to be able to spread this pipe apart far enough to be able to get these into here. With these brass ones, the install length is 1 1/8 inch. With the plastic one, they were 1 5/8 inch. And I had gone ahead and did this one up here, and I had a heck of a time getting it together. So I couldn't use the plastic one if I wanted to, because it was going to be another inch I'll have to cut another inch out, or extend it in another inch. So just keep that in mind. You're going to have to be able to spread these apart to be able to use these. So what we're going to do, what we start out doing, is we're going to line this. We've got our pipe where we want it to be, and it can move a little bit here and there. And you're going to just line the T up with the pipe, and then you're going to make a mark on your copper pipe. Hold there still, and make a mark on this side. Okay, so that marks the edge of the fitting. So it's 1 1/8" install length. So you're going to have to measure from that mark back 1 1/8". I about can't see my line. All right, let's try this again. I couldn't see my line, so let me, I went and got a magic marker. Back up. Okay, so now you've got your mark. You might hold it up there just to make sure that's the right length. And now what we're going to do is measure 1 1/8" from that line in. And that's where we should cut our pipe at. And you're going to measure the other one. 1 1/8". Okay, so we put our little cutters on there, and you just line the, on one side you've got a cutter wheel. You can zoom in on that. Okay, on one side you got a cutter wheel, and then the other side you've got 2 little wheels. You just want to line that cutter wheel up on the mark. So, do I? Yeah, be sure and turn the water off. So, let me, then you just turn it. You tighten the little, it's got a little nut on it, tighten it up. You just turn it. Tighten it a little more. You just got to tighten it up every few turns. Almost there, I think. Okay. Be ready for some water. I have a bucket down here. The cold water, the water came right on out. So now you're going to cut the other piece off. Okay, so now we're ready to put the fitting on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on one end, and you can take your sandpaper, kind of get the burrs off the end. You just take your fitting, and it's just going to slide on there. You might need to wiggle it a little bit. Okay. All right, we're already on there. So now we're ready to put the other side on. And that mark you made is what you need to go up to. to make sure that you're all the way on. So let's see if we can get this spread apart. Okay. All right, so now that's together. And again, you got the 1 1/8". So I'm going to cut this pipe off just a little bit. I'm going to cut it off at about 1 1/4" or a little better, just so that my fitting fits up against the floor joist a little better. It's still not going to go all the way up, but it'll be closer. So we're going to get other cutters. And then you just take the pipe and push it on up in there. Well, oh, it's on there crooked. There. I was trying to push it in a little bit of an angle, so I got it straightened up and it popped right in. And so that's all there is to it. You can't pull them out. And remember, the way to release these is with this. You've got a tool that you push on that black part, and it'll release it so that you can pull it back out. But there's really no reason to pull it out. So now we're ready to turn our water on and see if we've got any leaks. So that's all there is to running those water lines.